Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited for today's video. This, as you can see, is the book tag that Steph Borer came up with. I used to do tags like this on my channel a really long time ago, kind of when I started this channel, just like a bunch of tags that would go around a lot. I thought they were so fun. I still think they're so fun, so I'm so happy that there's a book one now. It's basically a bunch of book related questions, like a book that deserves the hype, a book you read really quick, and I'm just gonna give you my answers in the books that I have answered for those questions. I'm gonna put the questions in the description if you guys want to try this out yourself. We're gonna get right into it. I'm really excited to talk about these books. The first question is a book you tell people is your favorite. That is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is the book that if anyone asks what my top book is, and I know there's a lot of books out there that I say are my favorites that I've given 5 stars, but this is like the top, and I don't think any book will ever take over the spot of this one. I don't know what it was about this, but it's become like this comfort book to me, and it's the storyline, the characters, I don't know, the writing, everything about it is just, I'm obsessed with it. It's my favorite book ever, and I think it might have been the spark that my love for like second chance romances and like childhood friends to lovers tropes came into play. Like this was like one of my first ones that I fell in love with, and I love it like so much. Like this is my favorite book. A book that is your guilty pleasure. So for this one, it's technically a series, but you can read it either in 5 books or one big book. So that is the Mindfuck series. I don't know what it is about this. I think it's the mix of Lana being a serial killer and getting her point of view of doing what she's doing and the reasons for it, but like mixed with her love interest being the FBI agent. And I think it's because growing up like in high school, my favorite show, I literally binged it, all the seasons, was Criminal Minds. Him being the FBI profiler and getting him trying to profile her case and like other cases literally felt like I was reading a Criminal Minds episode, and I think that part of it really resonated with me. But then you mix in the romance between the two and the secrets that she's keeping, and it was so good. It kept me on my toes with like the mystery of why she's killing these people you don't know at first, and then the anticipation of him finding out that his top case is the girl that he is now dating. It was so good. I think that, yeah, that's definitely my guilty pleasure series / book. The next is a book that everyone loved but you didn't. This one, I'm gonna talk about it really quickly. I've talked about it multiple times on my channel. I actually have 2 for this one. People come at me when I say I don't like this book, and I just want to preface again, books and opinions are so subjective. That if you love this book, and majority of people, like the question says, loved this book, and I didn't, it's a personal thing. That's it. So the first one is 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I will preface this by saying again that I also read this quite a while ago. Like my taste has changed like a lot since I first read this, so I feel like maybe rereading it now I might like it. But I also have read a few other Taylor Jenkins Reid books, except for one that I just didn't like. I just don't think her writing is for me, and I know that's such an unpopular opinion because she is such like a loved writer and her books are loved by so many, and everyone says her writing is so beautiful and everything like that, but I just personally didn't like it. And this one I know is a fan favorite for a majority of people, but I remember reading it and it felt really boring. Like I was like pushing myself to read it. I don't like doing that, and it felt repetitive and again boring. And I think it's also the time era that it takes place in, like her going through old Hollywood and like that era. I don't think I love that, and it's just again all personal preferences. It wasn't my favorite. That's that. Again, I'm sorry if that offended anyone. The other one is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I wanted to include this because I know that this is a really big fan favorite, and I was told by like so many people to read this trilogy, and I ended up not loving them. But the first one specifically, I think I gave this like 2 stars because the fantasy aspect of this was so boring to me, and then like the little mini subplot of romance I didn't feel anything for. I didn't like any of the characters in this book. It wasn't for me. I think this is also one of the fantasies that I read kind of in the beginning of my fantasy journey. From then to now, I now know what I like in fantasy, and I still think if I read this after reading a few fantasy books, I still don't think I would like it. The writing to me was kind of slow, and I just didn't love the characters, like I said, and the fantasy stuff and I just didn't like it. A book you read the fastest. Honestly, this is gonna be like more of an author thing, but any Frida McFadden book that I have read so far, I have completely binged. Her writing is so fast paced. She gets right into the story. She's a mystery thriller author. I went on like a little Frida McFadden binge recently. The Housemaid was my first one by her, but then I recently read the second one, which is the sequel to The Housemaid, The Housemaid's Secret. I also read The Inmate, One by One, Never Lie, like kind of like low-key back-to-back to each other, and they were all just like really fast-paced. You're like wanting to continue reading because you want to know what happens, and every single one that I read by her has completely like shook me, and she just does such a good job. The whole thing, the storyline, the writing, everything. I'm obsessed. I binge her books, but yeah, this is the first one I read by her. I feel like this is the most popular popular, but all of her books so far are just, they're all binge worthy and I read them so quick. A book that deserves more hype is Ghosted by J.M. Darhauer. I've read this more recently and I gave it 5 stars, and I went into this not expecting to love it as much as I did. I will say that the tropes in here again are my favorite, which is the second chance, the more childhood friends to lover situation, and like the past and present timelines. Like, that's just my favorite book tropes and plots in books. Like, I don't know what it is about it, I eat it up every single time. But this one was done so well because the past timeline, the way it's written, is her journal from high school writing to Jonathan, which is the main guy character, in like the high school timeline. She writes it where you can see that she's writing in her journal, and then you get those journal entries and what she was writing to him in the time, and it's so good. And then the present, I loved it so much. And there is a kid in here, there's a single parent trope, but the kid just like makes the story, and I think that did it for me too, because I usually don't like kids in books, but she was so precious and she made the story just that much better, and everything about this was just so good, and it took me by surprise. I think that's why I loved it so much, and I think it deserves more hype. Everyone needs to read this book. A book that's becoming a movie or TV show. I think when this video comes out, it's actually already come out into the world, but Daisy Jones and the Six, while I'm filming this, it's not out yet. It comes out in a few days, which I'm so excited for. Like I said before, Taylor Jenkins Reid isn't my favorite author, but I read this one, I gave it a chance, and I gave it 5 stars. So there's hope out there for me to love her books, and this one did it for me. It was so good. That's not the question, but the way it was written, it was just so good. But yeah, this is becoming a TV show, and I saw the trailers, the music, all of the press and whatever marketing that they're doing for the show is hitting so hard. The casting that they did looks phenomenal, and I feel like usually seeing books turn movies, it's most of the time more than not a flop, but this one looks like it's really gonna portray the book like perfectly, and I'm so excited. A book you have reread the most. I've actually only reread I think 2 books from what I was seeing when I was looking at my Goodreads to pick out these books. The first one is Love and Other Words. I don't know when I first read it, I don't remember, but I reread it last year. I think I'm gonna reread it this year. I think this is just gonna be a book that I reread at least once a year. It's just a comfort book to me, and honestly the second time reading this was better than the first, and I feel like that could be a little surprising because I feel like rereading a book sometimes, like, you know what's happening and it may not feel as good because you know what's coming, everything like that. But I don't know what it was. Reading this for the second time, I found more things about it that I loved and more parts of the writing that just like stood out to me, and it just hit harder the second time. And I feel like reading this for the third time and so on throughout the years, I'll just find more things that I love about it. And I think that's what makes it so special. And then I also reread Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I was in a pretty big slump. I felt like reading a book that I already knew I loved and knew the storyline might help me get out of the slump. So I reread this last year, I believe. This is one of my favorite fantasies ever. It's a duet. The second one is Crooked Kingdom, and it's just so good. This is like a fantasy heist adventure situation, but there's also subplots of romance between multiple characters, and it's like a whole found family trope in here. It's so good. Oh, the character development is like phenomenal. A book from a genre you don't typically read. This one is hard because I feel like I've dipped my toes more so now than ever into like a fantasy and thrillers and mysteries, because I used to just like strictly read romance books, but I've broadened my horizons. But I will say the one genre that I don't read a lot is just plain old literary fiction. I feel like it tends to get, or I think it could tend to get boring, because like romance heavy books, obviously you have the romance, and the fantasies you have the whole new world building, and then like mystery thrillers you have like a plot twist you're waiting for. But I feel like in literary fiction it's like really hard to like, I don't know, entertain me, I guess. But I chose My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I read this last year and I ended up really enjoying this. I went into it blind to really what it was about. I was kind of confused by the summary of it, but it was about this girl who wanted to sleep for a whole year but just did it the completely wrong way with like pills and stuff, and it's just like this flowing timeline of that year and her just like waking up all dazed and confused. And yeah, I ended up really enjoying it and not expecting to enjoy it, but I don't read literary fiction too often. A book that deserves all the hype it gets. I actually have 2 series for this because I feel like these 2 I used to see on Book Talk before reading them. It was like shoved down my throat all the time. The first one is the Inheritance Games trilogy. I literally would see Instagram reels, TikToks of this series like so much, and like people talking about Team Grace and Team Jameson, and I was just like, I don't know who you guys are talking about. Don't know what's going on, but I want to know. So I ended up reading all 3 back to back, which is surprising because usually in series I need a little bit of a break sometimes, but this one, it was just like so entertaining, so fast paced, so it just kept me on my toes. Like I wanted to know what happened, and it's like unlike any other kind of like a mystery with romance subplot that I've read so far. It's just, I think the YA writing and aspect of it made it so quick, but also also the riddles and the secret passages, like that was all fun to go along with, and the romance was really fun, and it was really refreshing, these 3 books. This deserves all the hype that it gets. The other one is the Shatter Me series. I have all of them here except the last one I let my friend borrow, but I am not kidding you, on Book Talk before reading this, every time I would go onto TikTok would be an Aaron Warner edit, and I was like, who is Aaron Warner? Who is this guy? Why is everyone obsessed with him? Everyone on TikTok was down bad for him, and I was just like, I would see all these edits, and eventually it just kind of pushed me to at least read the first one. I was like, okay. And I will say the first one I didn't absolutely love, but I liked it enough to continue the series, and I seriously think that being such a big series, like, kudos to the author, because I usually would get through maybe like 4 or 5 books and then be done with it, but even the novellas were so good to me. The writing was it was beautiful, it was fast-paced, it was entertaining, the characters were amazing, the character development, the plot development, it was so good. Deserves all the hype. Warner deserves all of the TikTok hype. The way it plays out all the way to the end, I was obsessed. I still am obsessed. I think the series is amazing. A book you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation. Now, I have like 3 for these, so these are the 2 that I give like majority of the time. If anyone DMs me or anyone asks for just like a recommendation, they're in a slump, they need like a good romance to get them out, whatever, these are the ones I say. I don't know what it is about this book. I'm always recommending it. Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. I remember reading this. I started it like at night and then fell asleep, and then I woke up at like 2 a.m. and just binged the whole entire book. I could not put it down. The writing was just so, not only just fast paced, but like I wanted to keep going. Like there's a little mini mystery element to it because it's second chance, so they stopped talking in the middle, and I like wanted to know why, obviously, but it was just like so good. And it takes place in New York. They start out as college students, and then it's like in the future when they're older, and it's just like the New York setting when they were younger in the NYU dorms. And like he was a photographer, she was like a musician, or like she played instruments for the school or whatever. I loved it so much, like so much. I loved just the aesthetic of this book, and I'm always recommending it. So this is the first one, and then the other one I'm literally always recommending, especially if you're in a slump because it was really fast-paced but really cute, is The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. I don't know what it was about this one either. It's just the writing of it was so refreshing to me. The fake dating was done so well. The banter in this was amazing. I was obsessed when I read this, and I'm recommending this like all the time. I just love this book so much, and I was like so thrown off guard with how much I loved it because I didn't think I would. I actually wasn't gonna read it, and then I just randomly pulled it out and started reading, and I couldn't stop. It was so good. And then the last one is if anyone asks for recommendation that's mystery thriller, because that happens sometimes. Usually it's like majority like I need one for like out of a slump or a romance one, but sometimes thrillers come, and you guys already know I'm recommending Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. How could I not? It was like the first mystery thriller that just like really, it did something to me, and I was obsessed with it. It was an immediate 5-star. I binged the whole thing in a day, and it's just like, I always make sure everyone asks me for recommendation. Make sure they haven't read this yet, because then I'll recommend this. So good. Always recommending this one too. A book that has my favorite characters, and that is the Addicted Calloway Sisters series / spin-off. This is just the Addicted series. But Lily, Lo, Rose, Connor, Reich, Daisy, something about those characters, they feel like real people. I think Kristen Becca Ritchie did such a good job with the character development of every single one of them, individually and as a couple, that like by where I got to, which was like, I have 2 books left, but where I got to, it was just, they felt like real people. I don't know, the core 6, they're just like, I don't know how to explain it, but they are my favorite characters. I think they were done so well. I really don't have much to say or much explanation for this one, but these ones are definitely favorite characters of mine. Like, I literally wish that I could meet Rose and Connor. Like, I don't know what it was about those 2. I wish they were real. A book you wish you could live in. I don't know if it's because I'm currently reading this book, but something about this right now, I want to go into it. I don't know if it's the small town. I don't know what it is, but it's just the vibe I'm in right now. The Knock 'Em Out series, there's a 3rd one coming out, but the first one is Things We Never Got Over, and when I first read it, gave it 5 stars, was obsessed with it. The couple, Knox and Naomi, the small town like community, and then this one just came out, and I started it yesterday, and I'm about to finish it right now, and I binged it. Again, the couple, the townspeople, the little group that they have going on, like everything about it, I'm obsessed with. I cannot wait for the 3rd book. I want to be a part of the Knock 'Em Out town with these characters like so bad. I don't know what it is. I'm just obsessed, and it could be because I'm currently reading this, but I don't know. I love it. I have 2 for this one. And then I have the Addicted series. I think that if I were to live in a world with these characters, I would be so happy. Like, I want to be best friends with these characters. I want to live in their world. I want to do what they're doing. And again, I don't have much explanation for it, but it's just something about these books. I want to live in it. A book that you thought you would hate but ended up loving. Again, I have 2 for this one. So the first one is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I saw so many mixed reviews about this one. A lot of people either love it or hate it. So I went into this not too optimistic about loving it. it just because of all of the reviews I've seen, all the mixed reviews, and it's been my only personality trait for a while. I'm obsessed with them. I have only read Magnolia Parks, Daisy Hates, Magnolia Parks 2, and now I have Daisy Hates 2 to read. I really didn't think I was gonna end up loving it. The only thing is I went into it knowing it was like a Gossip Girl-esque world, and I do love Gossip Girl. This is one of my favorite shows ever, but then I was like, I don't know how that's gonna portray into a book so well. It portrayed so well, and I'm obsessed with it. Magnolia Parks 2, and just the series, has become like my favorite books ever. The other one is Daisy Jones and the Six, because like I said, the whole Taylor Jenkins read, I don't love her books, but this one ended up being a 5-star, and the characters felt so real because it's told interview style, and it's told in the timeline of them as they're older, answering questions about how they became a band, how Daisy joined the band, how they became like the most famous band ever, and like the whole thing in the interview style. They're explaining it in a past tense. I don't know, the way it's written was like genius. She's a genius for this. But again, I expected to hate it because I just like, I don't know. I didn't like her other book, so it was just like, that's what I thought. I ended up absolutely loving it. I love this book so much. A book that made you cry. I actually have 2 for this as well. I feel like all the books that made me cry, I've recorded somewhere. Like it's somewhere on the internet, me crying over these books. But the first one is If You Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. The thing is, the ending was expected. Like I knew it was coming. It was so abrupt and so sudden, and I still cried, and I still think about it, and I will probably still cry if I think about it too much. But the thing is, it was so abrupt, and I think some people don't like that. Like some people are like, they didn't have a lot of time together and then that happened. It's like so much time was wasted, and if that's the point of the book, the point is that they had so much time that they could have been together and they weren't, and they were selfish about it, and finally things are happy and pain comes. I think I've realized that I like pain in books because that happens in Magnolia Parks, where like it's like this whole thing and then finally things are good and then something bad happens, and it comes kind of out of nowhere, but like you're expecting it and it hits, and this one did it for me. The other one is Bright Side by Kim Holden. I went into this hearing that it was sad, but after reading it and like continuing to read it, I was like, what is so sad about this? And then I caught on, and then it came out of nowhere. The last 100 pages, I'm not even kidding, I read and my face was just like wet. My eyelashes were sticking together. It was not fun, but this one definitely made me cry like really hard, and it was like I didn't really expect it. That's the thing. Like I went into this hearing it was sad, but like not expecting it to be that sad, and it got me good. A book you wish you could read for the first time again. This one definitely is Darling Venom by Parker S. Huntington. I don't know what it is about this book, but I think it's because when I downloaded it on my Kindle, it was like kind of randomly chosen. It was for a video I was filming, and I had like no expectations going into it. I didn't really know what it was about fully, and as I was reading it, I was just absolutely loving everything about it. The storyline and the plot, the characters, and the themes and topics that was touched on throughout the whole book. Like it wasn't just a romance, and I think that's what I like a lot about some of my favorite books, are just like it feels like more than what it is. There's more things talked about, and it's like deeper. I was obsessed with it, and I wish I could reread that for the first time and get the feeling that I got from that book for the first time, because I just didn't expect to love it so much. And I still think about it to this day, and it's just like one of my favorite books. That's all for me. Those were all of the questions. Again, the questions will be in the description for you guys to answer if you want to. Let me know if some of your answers to them, if they're similar to mine or not, or really anything. Just let me know. Shout out Steph for creating this tag again. It was so fun to do because I feel like I don't really reflect back on books that I've read too often. This was like I had to go through them, and like it's very specific. I don't know, I really enjoyed it, so thank you. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you did, and I will see you hopefully in the next one. Bye!